I've never acknowledged the fact that it's gendered. I've always just done my thing and been unapologetically who I am. And now I lean even more into the fact that I'm a woman because I do think being a woman actually has much more advantages because we can multitask. We can really be strategic in so many ways. And if we are more graceful and we do things in a more effortless manner and are true to our superpower strengths, I do think we have more to unlock than men do.
Can we do it?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Influential Women, where we empower, connect, and inspire women who are leading, creating, and redefining what is possible. I'm your host, Jodie O'Brien, and today we are joined by Kirsten Jordan. She's the founder of the Kirsten Jordan team at Cochrane and the first female broker cast on Bravo's $1 Million Listing New York. Kirsten leads a top-ranked real estate advisory practice with over 1.5 billion with a B in lifetime closed transactions and a number one ranking in Manhattan for transactions in 2023. But what makes Kirsten remarkable isn't just the numbers, though these are impressive. It's how she approaches wealth, real estate, and leadership with analytical rigor and strategic precision. Kirsten has made bold professional moves at peak career moments, built an unshakable personal brand in a very male-dominated industry, and she's scaled influence through integrity rather than visibility chasing. Today's conversation is about reinvention and betting on yourself, wealth as a strategy, not status, and power of stewardship over sales, building influence in a male-dominated world, and how women can lead powerfully without sacrificing what matters most. Kirsten, it's so good to see you. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, I'm a New Yorker. I grew up in upstate, so honored to talk to you today.
We love fellow New Yorkers. And honestly, there's so many people who are from New York who are around the United States and beyond that it's so often people, New Yorker, I miss it there. And so I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, so super accomplished in this state, which, as you know, most of us are movers and shakers if you come from the state of New York, but you have given that a new name. You've achieved really what many people just can dream of. You're the first female broker cast on $1 Million Listing New York, and you've hit number one in Manhattan for transactions in 2023. And then you built a $1.5 billion practice. But what first pulled you into real estate? I'm so curious.
I honestly got into real estate because I had been living in Italy. I was actually living in Milan and outside of Milan for a couple of years after college because when I got out of college, I didn't feel like there was a lot that you could do professionally that was really fun in those early years of those entry-level positions. And so I got myself on a plane and I moved to Milan. And while I was there, I eventually got a job after waiting tables and doing a bunch of odd jobs and babysitting. Job working in sales, and I was actually selling licenses for designs for greeting cards and wrapping paper. And I was traveling around Europe, sales, and also doing a lot of kind of translation for the owner. And it all kind of blew up, and I had to come home. And I moved in with my parents and was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life at the time. And my stepfather said, "Why don't you get into sales, but with something where you'll make money?" Because I liked the sales I was doing. In Europe, spoiler, you don't make much money. And so I got my real estate license and I started doing sales. I was 24 years old. It was 2007. And it was the perfect time to get into the real estate market because obviously we were just right before the financial crisis. And so I got my license and the next thing you know, I was off to the races learning all about all things selling Manhattan real estate at the time. Work in multiple boroughs, and I have my license in 3 states. So I'm doing more outside of also just Manhattan. But that's where I started, was in 2007.
Do you think there was a moment early on where you thought, I'm just not good at this, but then hello, now you're leading the industry, right? So did you have a moment of doubt?
I would say that I have had many moments of doubt during my career. It has never necessarily come from the selling aspect, I would say the selling is probably the easy part. It's the creating a team, building a team, maintaining all the other things outside of the selling and keeping a pipeline of clients is probably the most difficult part of my business. The selling itself, I actually enjoy that probably the most. And it's the part that you start to do less and less of as you grow and grow a team and have your business. There's a maybe your agents are selling and you're not doing as much of the selling as much as you're putting out the fires and everything else. But that's where all my doubt has usually come from. It's been actually more organizational woes than anything else. And then in the early years, most of my doubt really came when I started having my kids and I was trying to balance everything. And I didn't have the right support professional support because I didn't feel like I could really justify having help in the office or help behind the scenes. And so I was always doing it all myself. And that was just something that effectively just really made me wonder if it was the right thing for me to be doing at the time.
Absolutely. Well, in those early years, do you think that you were more driven by independence, financial freedom, or do you think it was something else?
The early years of being in the business, I think I really I had jumped around in a lot of jobs between college and when I moved back to New York in 2007. And I think I had enough experience that if I just stuck out in one job long enough, I would eventually be successful. And so the thing that's always kept me in the business is kind of chasing the dragon. I know that if I just stay in this long enough and just keep doing what I'm doing, eventually things will happen because I've always been so consistently deep. And so as far as having a driver, I get a lot of joy out of hard work. I really do. I'm an achiever. I'm an athlete. I'm just genuinely love the grind in a lot of ways. And I love being busy, that's definitely nothing anybody puts on their vision board, but it is a layer where you have to say you enjoy the busy. And I love the relationships. And now, as much as I love my relationships with my clients, the relationships I have with my team and with it, that's some keeps me going because that's some of my closest friends at this point are agents that I work with or team. So as far as that drive, I'd say right now that drive really is, yeah, we've got the metrics, we've got the awards. The early years, it was like honestly survival and a fear of like, leave this thing. I'm going to turn around and be like, I should have stuck with it because frankly, there is a little bit of a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And now honestly, I find the thing right. And so I feel like I owe it to myself to really crush it now because I just have such an amazing team, which has taken me years and just so much torture to build. That has been the most torturous part of this success is owning that I needed to have a team and have real infrastructure and building that. And that's kind of like this next phase of where I am right now, where I'm like, wow, I attracted good talent because of my track record. I've identified these humans. They're awesome. They want to work with me, which like blows my mind every single day. And so we have to we need to do really well now.
Okay. Well, Kirsten, as women, especially in high stakes industries, it's super easy to feel underestimated and even doubt ourselves, as we talked about. So, in those early days, did you feel that? Did you feel just like you were being underestimated? And was there a moment that really transformed your confidence and how you showed up?
The irony of the early years and feeling maybe I don't know, undervalued or
Estimated,
not being or
undervalued.
underestimated or undervalued honestly came probably more from just being young and inexperienced, truthfully. There are days when I want to write my first boss that I had in real estate and say, I appreciate your patience with me during that time. Because as much as I was a super hard worker, I was the right hand to a really top agent or top-ish agent at the time. She was up there. And I worked for her 7 days a week. And the role was so different than the way things are now and the way we run our businesses now that I was doing everything for her soup to nuts. And there are some things that genuinely I should never be doing for anybody because it's just not a strength for me. And so I did all of those things, but I didn't have a framework or any sort of admin or operational experience to structure things in a way that was probably as organized as they should have been. And so I think I naturally had the things you can't teach, but I also was missing the things that I maybe should have been taught. And now I know a lot more about them now that I've had more experience with working with seasoned operations people and administrative assistants and even EAs and all of the things. And so the reality is I didn't even know how to put myself out there or push myself more into the next step. And so it was a lot of trying to learn from the people that I could look up to, but not knowing where to push because I just didn't have the experience.
Well, a lot of people know you from television, and Bravo is undeniably a major force in pop culture. I mean, hello, that is what I do when I have downtime. That is my cup of joe. I mean, constantly. So that level of visibility can be really incredibly powerful. Take us back to the beginning. How did you even get this opportunity on Million Dollar Listing New York? How did it first come to you, and what ultimately led you to say yes?
The thing that happened was my husband's always liked watching $1 Million Listing. I'm not a big sit on the couch and watch television person, which is what it is. I probably, or even, and there's no way that my house is structured that enables me to watch TV while doing other things. I have also tremendous ADD. And so I can't have something going on in the background because I'll just watch it. Like I can't, I can't handle that much. So my husband would always watch $1 Million Listing. I always used to judge it. I was like, those guys, they just sit and collect checks. They're so ridiculous, whatever. And at one point in 2019, a couple of years after I had my third child, I thought I was working on a team. I wasn't happy working the team I was working on. I'd gotten into meditation because I had a neck injury and I needed to de-stress because it was clear that it was coming from stress. I really identified that it was finally time for me to get an assistant and it was time for me to take my business to the next level. My third child was old enough. I think I started to kind of figure out what I was doing with childcare and a better apartment for the structure of our family. And I was like, I'm not going to go to do any other job. I'm just going to stick with this. I had actually gone back to school for nutrition to become a nutritionist and get into holistic health because I had had some challenges while I was getting pregnant. I was trying to get pregnant. So I kind of gone down a road of being like, am I supposed to be a real estate agent? I was pregnant with my second. It all was like, maybe this is my calling. Maybe I shouldn't be in real estate anymore, blah, blah, blah. But once I started seeing patients, it was really clear that I'm definitely not going to save anybody from their own nutrition mistakes because if people don't care, people have to want to change. And I was like, I'm not going to be a psychologist and this is not enough money based on how much money I was making in real estate. So I recentered everything. I was meditating. I was like, I gotta do something different. I realized I was going to hire someone in 2020 or even sooner. And I was ready to invest in this for myself. And all of a sudden I got this text from this woman named Chanel. And she was like, hey, I'm casting for Bravo's $1 Million Listing New York. I saw your Instagram. How was your year this year in real estate? And I was thinking to myself, wow, here I am kind of asking for a sign. And I got this sign, which is that I'm probably meant to be on television. And I didn't even think of it as something that had some amazing amount of competition. I was like, I feel like they must have just reached out to me and they're going to totally cast me. So I started the casting process. And to me, it became super clear during the casting process that that I was the right fit for this, in my opinion. And that I also felt, not to bash the people who are currently on reality television, I felt that I was a unique person and a unique fit because many people that are as normal as me are not interested in reality television. And I felt that it was the kind of brand that was just at the edge of something that I could do without ruining my whole life. And so that's why I decided to do it. I thought, and I really trusted the producers. I trusted the whole thing. And I just got super clear about the fact that I was going to be cast on this show. So I was cast in January of 2020 and started filming in February. And then the world shut down on March 15th. And we filmed behind the scenes. We did home footage, which we barely used. And then we started filming again, in the summer. And it was such an incredible learning experience. It taught me so much about not knowing what you don't know, about asking questions that you need to, and how important it is if you take on an opportunity that has such potential to invest in making the most of it. And that was, and not to give you the longest winded response, I would say that I did not take the full advantage of what I could have done with $1 Million Listing. I also was so busy surviving my first season that I feel like I did the best I could. But if I knew then what I know now, I would have been a way bigger bitch. I would have done a lot more when it comes to the open houses and all the things. I probably would have even invested more in wardrobe and all of it. And I would have raised the stakes and pushed myself to presenting myself as the broker I wanted to be in a decade instead of, who I felt like I wanted to be within a couple of years. And I would have produced my own storylines a little bit more. I would have been more actively pushing for my angle. I would have had an angle, but I
Mhm.
didn't. I had the angle of like, as long as I show up and do the best I can, it's all going to work out. And it did work out because I don't really have the bandwidth for reality television right now, aside from potentially some interesting opportunity like a judge on Shark Tank sounds fabulous, but that position is taken by Barbara Corcoran, by the way. So I'm not doing that. But you know,
Exactly.
I learned a ton, and I don't have any regrets, but I learned a lot from the experience.
Well, it's so true, right? We don't know what we don't know. Yeah, your personality, had you have like done it differently, maybe, yeah, it would have worked out differently. But it did change your business. So tell me about that. How did it change your business in ways that people might not expect?
To be able to film and handle the demands of actually being on the show, you have to build a team. And I had never built a team before. So it forced me to build an infrastructure, which I was not ready. I was ready to have the help. I wasn't ready to build an organization or deal with what comes with having an organization because I'd never really dealt with HR, which is the bane of my existence. And so it forced me to do that. And as soon as you start to take certain things off your plate, or as soon as I started to take certain things off my plate, I will never take those things back. And that was really good learning for me. So the thing that it pushed me as far as business to do was to start leveraging my time and leveraging other people to make sure that I was focusing on my highest and best use. As far as like get my phone ringing off the hook, that definitely was not the case. It was really something that was past clients and people I already knew acknowledged me when maybe they didn't before, or remembered that I was in the business more than they did before. Obviously, it helped the Instagram and social media presence. It helped me with some speaking opportunities, and obviously, we did what's the name of that show, that game show, Family Feud. We did some great stuff as a group. I think the franchise was kind of on its way out because of the fact that Bravo just had mismanaged also so much of the marketing and so much of what was going on with the way that they were handling getting the show out there. I think that Netflix and those couple of shows that have been or that are on right now, selling New York and owning Manhattan, they've done a great job with the 360-degree promotion of everybody taking the behind the scenes videos. And they're like, that's where the marketing really is not just the show, but like what happened behind the scenes, what was going on that day. So the way it affected my business was people remembered me, and it gave me confidence, and forced me to start this infrastructure and this team, which has been a journey ever since. And it like pushed me out of my comfort zone to build my business and do the things and act as if I was going to be famous, which I didn't need Bravo to do, but apparently for me, I needed the validation to give myself the okay to do that.
It's incredibly honest and transparent. Now, I know that, you're working behind the scenes right now on your musical, right? That you're going to do for for your next listing. Have you seen that episode?
Girl, I love Chloe though. When I met that girl before she was on the show, and she was working for another broker, but I won't even say who she is. And I met her for the first time, and I was like, she's going to be somebody.
She's pretty
And
great.
she's impressive. She's really
Yeah.
impressive. I think she's working her butt off. She's a really hard worker. She's truly an influencer as well. Like, she does the influencer hustle. And I'm really happy for her because I feel like she has paralleled those skills into so much, and she deserves every single second of it because I'm really happy for her.
We're going to have to get a little short so we can show her this. Let her know that you gave her a shout out. But
Yeah, she's oh my god, she's like, yeah, she's a good one.
phenomenal. So you've talked about, though, protecting and building your personal brand as a long-term asset, not just chasing visibility. So how does being strategic and intentional rather than just being like the woman on TV serve you in your business?
One of the things that I've learned from investing in PR over the years is that you have to continue to be as strategic as humanly possible all the time. And that strategy is going to evolve over time. All you can do is hammer down what you think your pillars, priorities, message is. And then you have to just act in integrity with what you're putting out there as the inquiries come in or as the opportunities come to you. And like I remember a couple of years ago, they asked me to be on a panel and it was with a developer that I don't want to be associated with. And they're not my developer. And I turned it down. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be associated with that developer. I don't care if the company I'm at is working with him. It's just not it just doesn't feel right to me. And other brokers, just to have the money, would happily be associated with him or sit next to him or whatever it is. That's not my thing. There's plenty of opportunities out there. Plus, one opportunity and the right visibility you can stretch it. You can stretch it around the block. You don't need to have quantity. You need to focus on quality. And for me, I had a period of time where I was doing a lot more broadcasts. I love broadcasts. I'm not doing as much of it right this second, but I really enjoy it. And so when the right opportunities come up, I do it. When the wrong opportunities come or the opportunities that are too expensive for the quality of the exposure, I don't do them. And there are certain outlets that I will no longer be on their show because I don't think their anchors are effective. And I think that it's just too many weird open silences and I don't want to fill those silences. And that's what I've decided. So, and the longer I've been doing this, the more I'm clear on what that integrity looks like. I also realized early on that fluff PR for me that had to do with maybe stuff that was drama related or too close to like that fashion PR that doesn't have a grounds in facts and knowledge is just not something that resonates with me. I don't think there's anything wrong with other people doing it, but I'm never going to be the fashionista. I love dressing myself. I love getting dressed. I love wardrobe, but I'm never going to be like fashion forward. And therefore that world it's more like my brand is me looking nice and presentable every day and showing up and being that person that everyone's like, wow, she always looks put together. Not the person who's wearing like the wild outfit.
That's awesome.
So all of that together has helped me kind of decide to just keep going in that direction. And then the thing that I'm the most passionate about is I love talking about real estate and I love explaining real estate to people. And I've learned so much that I can distill into very chewable, easy to understand chunks. And that's one of my greatest passions.
That's so great because most people think of real estate as buying and selling homes, but you really talk about real estate as a wealth engineering tool. That's a different lens entirely. So can you walk us through the difference between buying a home and building wealth through real estate strategy?
Most people, no matter what, want to buy and own their primary residence. And generally, if you look at the history of the United States of America, if you are in it for the long haul, stabilizing your housing costs should be a goal within reason. Because by stabilizing your housing costs with the history of inflation, you can continue to understand and budget for your life. So there's a layer where that is super, super important. However, living in a place like New York City, where we haven't necessarily had a history of appreciation in a lot of markets, a lot of parts of the market, that starts to become more and more questioned with people. So that's one component. Then there's the world of where do I own, where do I buy if I live in a major city? If I live in downtown Boston, should I own on the Cape instead because I can only afford to have one home? And what does it look like for me to own real estate and use it as an investment property, which obviously has a lot of tax benefits and potentially for somebody who doesn't want to be there full time and is able to manage potentially even some Airbnb could be a great way to think about real estate. And generally what we're seeing as we see this great wealth transfer from the baby boomers down, that a lot of parents are buying homes for their children and they're giving them that ability to help them stabilize their housing costs. And if you look at it versus investing your money in the stock market, I understand that most of the time the stock market is going to outperform the housing market. However, stabilizing your housing costs and enabling you to continue to budget and put away money and invest is really fundamental for so many people. And so I think that right now there's a lot of confusion around a lot of this. So I'd say if you're thinking of building wealth, real estate is for most of us really does need to be a component of wealth preservation and building. How you do it is very nuanced based on where you live, how much money you have, the kind of job you have. I mean, for some people that are listening to this podcast, they don't have W-2 income. And so for them to just get a mortgage and go out there and get a mortgage might not be easy or possible considering all of the guidelines. So maybe they need to invest in real estate in a different way. So, and then obviously right now there's some stuff going on with the big or is it the big beautiful bill or the big whatever Trump did that has to do with real estate professionals and the ability for them to invest in real estate, other real estate assets, and how that affects their tax deductions and ability to have tax-free income or tax-free, dividends off of certain assets. So I'd say to jump around and put it all together, real estate is something that is important to understand. There are a tremendous amount, whether you're buying real estate for investment or your primary residence, there's a tremendous amount of tax advantages to owning real estate. Additionally, it's an incredible hedge against inflation, and where you can take advantage of that to stabilize your own housing costs or build wealth, preserve wealth, it is a force to be reckoned with. Even during times when we're seeing a massive appreciation in the stock market and other markets, it's just really important to know and learn. And so that's something I've seen wealthy people leverage over the time I've been a real estate agent and worked with a lot of wealthy people. And it's also something I've seen people who don't have a lot of money use to create their own wealth, especially, for example, which is like such an under discussed topic, like veterans and their ability to purchase a home with no money down. There's a lot of people out there who are in that category who are able to build wealth and buy investment properties because of this ability to buy, to put down no money and have a mortgage, which is their right as somebody who is who is serving our country. These are like really important things to know about and learn about. So the long story short is that you can't get away from learning about real estate. And the more you learn about real estate, the more you're going to realize there's a lot of wealth building and wealth preserving tools that can be enacted by buying real estate or participating in that. And I'm writing a book about it right now. So I'm excited to bring that at some point to market.
I love that. Do you have a title yet?
I've got a couple of things that I'm kind of kicking around. One of the things I'm really excited about is talking about good debt versus bad debt and what leveraging and what mortgages and how to think about that. Because I think a lot of people think of debt as bad. And I think real estate debt can be a good thing because obviously as you pay it down, you're getting this asset, for your money.
Yeah, for sure.
So I was going to do something having to do with borrowing and building wealth. And then there's the buy, borrowing, and dying concept, which is a whole other thing with tremendous wealth. And so this is something I think about all the
So
time
many
now because
ideas.
I
Yeah.
love all this.
I love that. Well, women, we still lag significantly in asset ownership and wealth building. Why do you think that is?
Well, for so many of us, we give away our power no matter how much money we're making. We think men know more than we do about building wealth or saving money or investing money. The truth is like you're probably only a few books away from knowing more than your neighbor about money and about wealth if you are willing to invest the time in it. I know a friend who just recently got divorced and immediately got some kind of financial advisor that they got through their divorce attorney to help them with their finances because they got a lot of money from their divorce settlement. And she hasn't read any finance books. And I thought to myself, at any point when you just blindly are trusting experts, whether that's your husband, your boyfriend, your financial advisor, most of them are going to be men, even if they're a woman. Why would you not do a little bit of your own research so you could ask some questions? This is your money. And so I have spent a fair amount of time reading books about finance, studying it, and I am no expert. However, there's a lot of fundamentals I've learned from that. And I wish I had listened more to my own gut instincts early on, even when I didn't have the right tax structure for my business when I first set up my team. I was still running it as what was I running it as? I was running it as it was basically a sole proprietor individual. I probably lost $250,000 to the US government in not having the right tax structure. And I kept saying to my accountant, I think I'm doing this wrong. I'm about to make a lot more money this year. Are you sure? And he kept mansplaining me that I wasn't right. And I finally got a second opinion from another accountant. And they were like, you need an S Corp right now. This is crazy. So there is no excuse to not know a little bit more. And to just assume that men know more is not right because I sit with men a lot and bring up ideas and options that they've never thought of when they are in finance. And especially people in finance can be the most narrow minded because they only know the products that they're selling. So we all need to do our part and get curious because it's not about how much money you make. It's about how much you take home and and it's about your wealth. It's not about your earning.
What is the one thing, like a page from your book, that you wish that women knew about real estate assets and building wealth on our own terms?
Well, The earlier you save and use tax deferred or taxed post tax retirement accounts, the better off you are. I do believe in trying to build the Roth kind of accounts. I am by no means an expert. However, when you're young and you're not making a lot of money, that's when you can start some of these post-tax accounts. So like a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, those are, those are not taxed on the way out. Anything you can do that you can take out without being taxed or you can pay taxes on now or save and put into, you really need to be thinking about that. At any point in time, when you can opt to have a parent or somebody help you with a down payment so that you can get into real estate, take that option. That's not a handout. That is a true gift so that you're able to stabilize your housing costs. And in some cases, if you're looking at an extremely expensive wedding and you could instead take that money and put it towards a home, it's not a crazy idea. It's like this whole stabilizing your housing costs is a really big deal. And anytime you can potentially do that and get into that, it's really, really helpful. But the other biggest page is really learn about all the things that affect how much money you take home. Whatever you can learn about the tax code or your personal tax liability is so important because so many of us focus on our top line and nobody asks the questions of whether they can get a portion of their income in 1099 instead of W-2, or if there's anything they can do to lessen their tax burden. I'm not suggesting they'll move to Florida or Texas. I'm just saying these are questions that can give you more money in your pocket that in those early years you can put into these accounts. And then $50,000 or $20,000 in an account like that you invest in your early 20s or late 20s is very different than investing in your 40s because of the rules of compounding interest. And so understanding your own tax liability and the laws of compounding interest are probably the two most important things. My favorite book right now is The Psychology of Money, which is a book that is so incredibly well written. And it really gives you a good understanding of how important compounding interest is and understanding your relationship with money and how personal it is. So everybody needs to do their own thing differently. And there's no one way, but compounding interest is the gift.
We're going to have to link that book in the show notes.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. That's a
listen up,
really good book.
people.
I've also read a bunch of other ones that were maybe longer and more difficult, but he did a great job in that book.
That's a great idea. So speaking about relationships, you talk about protecting client capital over chasing transactions. I imagine that there have been deals that you've walked away from, even though they really would have meant commission for you. So tell us how you build a reputation and a business based on what's right for you and your clients rather than what's the best thing for maybe you financially.
Every single deal I've done, because I just was going to let them do the deal, I've lived to regret in some form. And so it's true. The bad deals that you make are the ones that you will live to regret. Anybody I've ever worked with that I knew I was getting into bed with that was a bad person has also been not worth my time or my money. And so, yes, I've walked away from my fair share of deals, especially now when people come to me about certain things and I can tell that they're not the right fit for us. I just say, no, I'm like, this is not the right meeting for me. I can tell that this is not the right person for us as a team. And the crazy thing is that now that I've started doing that, it's amazing how much better, how much more enjoyable my business is and how much I can just focus on the people that I really enjoy working with. So it's not just saying no to deals because of the fact that it's not a good deal for my client. That's easier. It's saying no to the clients I should never work with. That's more important. And I always say, you make the money in the deal. And so not only is it about not working with the wrong people, but if the financial terms of the agreement or the arrangement I have with a client doesn't work for me, but I'm doing it anyway, usually those deals don't work either. So anytime where I say, well, we'll probably break even at a minimum, I hope, instead of saying there's money in this deal, we can make money, are the ones that are usually not the right fit. So it's just an interesting, it's just kind of part of the deal.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the luxury real estate gig in New York is definitely an old boys club. I mean, it always has been. And you've had to build your influence, recruit top talent, lead in that environment as a woman. So tell us about that. How do you stay true to yourself while also commanding respect and not being underestimated?
Well, what's funny is that there's a lot of male developers, but there's also a ton of female real estate agents. And the leadership in our company specifically is women. And actually, the women who are in leadership are, I actually think, tougher than the men that are in leadership because they're truly, to get there, they do have to be even tougher. So as far as like I've never acknowledged the fact that it's gendered. I've always just done my thing and been unapologetically who I am. And now I lean even more into the fact that I'm a woman because I do think being a woman actually has much more advantages because we can multitask. We can really be strategic in so many ways. And if we are more graceful and we do things in a more effortless manner and are true to our superpower strengths, I do think we have more to unlock than men do. And so that's something I've really been focusing on because I did muscle through and warrior through so much in my early years. And I was so exasperated and so exhausted and so like flustered all the time and always felt like I was on my heels. And now really am focusing on the fact that I'm the prize and so is my team. And if they don't want to work with us, that's totally fine. And frankly, I know people who I was talking to an attorney the other day. He was like, "Yeah, I only hire women." I was like, "Yeah, I bet you do." So do I. I've got like one, and I've got one guy on my team. I got one guy, maybe two, technically two. But I mean, women are good. We're
Yeah.
good. We're good at what
It's
we do. Especially, it's amazing.
It's
Go ahead.
amazing. It's amazing how when we were younger, we would try to maybe make ourselves smaller, or there was that trepidation of like, okay, I'm in the room, I'm here, but we didn't feel like we could step into our superpower. And now I feel like as I get older, I'm like, well, hell no, this is a superpower. You know that I'm going to work this angle. It's so amazing because we are such multifaceted creatures. Like, we do not take anybody's crap. And on top of that, we can multitask. I will say though, I mean, I have to ask you, running a top ranked team, you've been on national television, you're raising these children. That's a lot of worlds that collide. What does real balance even look like to you in this season of your life, especially in those moments that feel overwhelming? And then how in the heck do you protect your family time in an industry that never shuts off?
I think time, first of all, I take vacations. I do. My husband's really into trips and vacations. I can't take every trip that he wants to go on, but I do take the trips and I go away. I don't mind working from far away at all. I think it's actually one of the pluses of our business is that I can still do deals from far away and make money while I'm traveling. And that's kind of part of the business. And I'm thankful for that, actually. I don't view that as anything that takes away from my ability to be balanced. I kind of like keeping it going. And I love that correspondence and staying connected. As far as there being a balance, it's really an ebb and a flow. I have periods of time in the summertime that can be not as busy, but I do keep myself busy. And that's part of the reason I'm successful is because when things aren't busy, I stay busy and I do the things I can't do when things are busy. And I actually recently just got a landline in my house so my kids can call me during the day. I'm trying to find ways because I do feel like I had way less balance when my kids were little. And definitely outsourced the parenting even more when they were very little. And now that they're older, or they're the 8, 10, and 12, I feel like now are the years when I need to be more present. And so I've been super clear about the fact that they can call me anytime. I will pick up the phone. Unless I'm literally on a call, I will call them right back, that kind of a thing. So that's been helpful. And then I try to get home at a reasonable hour as many nights a week as I can and be able to spend the time with them that I can. And, even if it's a couple minutes putting them to bed at night or whatever it is, I do that. I really don't take appointments on the weekends as much anymore. I let my team take those appointments unless they're super important or something. And I make sure that I go to the important events for them for school and I do those things. I do focus more on the kid centered events and less on the parent events.
Mhm.
In the scheme of prioritization, I've lowered the priority of of the parent relationships at the schools and done the best I can to focus on the rest of it. Whether that was the right decision or not, I'm not sure, but that's just what I've decided for me. So there is no perfect way of doing this. I do have a personal assistant and I will continue to have one probably until the day I die. I consider it something that is a big savings when you consider the capital gains that you'd pay on getting divorced, because it's the only
100%.
way. It's the only way to keep a marriage. For me, it's the only way to keep my marriage in a place where there's no resentment, is by having another person who can help take the burden away from the role that I have. Because the lack of balance comes more from the administrative load and the mental load of the mother than the actual time that's needed to be with your kids. It's when you're sitting up at night doing the calendar for the kids and all those things, instead of getting rest so you can get up and be there in the morning when everyone's having breakfast and sit and have your coffee with everybody. That's actually the problem.
Yeah. Oh, it's 100%
So,
the problem. Yeah.
so the time I, yeah, and you know what? I don't have as much. My business is less profitable because of the fact that I pay someone to do these things, and that's okay with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Right now,
I'm
it's
with
going to be more
you.
profitable in the future, but it's something
Yeah.
I've had to build out and own that had to happen so I could be present with my kids.
Well, I did not ask ChatGPT last night at 1:30 in the morning. Hey, Mr. ChatGPT, I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And Mr.
Mhm.
ChatGPT wrote me back and he said that he wanted to know an answer to this question. Is it operational stuff or is it the passion and what you love what you do? Like, is it that? Are you burned out about that? Is it time to, step back? Or is it the operational? Totally the operational. We love what we do. We love being busy. But it's that operational nonsense, that minutia that we get stuck in, the tech, all the things that you can outsource. You can still do what you love and spend the time and do those things. So I really love what you're saying. It really resonates with me, and I know it's going to resonate with our listeners for sure.
It's the stuff. It's the stuff that breaks us down. That's the stuff that breaks us down.
It's the stuff. Well, as you know, at Influential Women, we obviously believe that influence isn't just about our success, but it's about the impact that we create for others. And you really have become a household name. You've built a business at the highest level. But what do you want your legacy to be beyond those rankings?
I love the leadership component, and I do love the talent selection and building the team. And that's been really, really amazing for me. And I do believe that there will be a legacy for me that does involve leadership. I'm excited about this book. That's one thing I'm passionate about. And it's something that's been a project that's been in the works for a while. I do have a huge passion also around children with learning disabilities and helping underprivileged families that have children with learning disabilities find the right education for themselves and within the system that we have and outside of the system, also in the private system that's available to them. I do believe that that is something that's fundamentally broken, especially for people who don't have the resources to figure out what's going on with their kids. I have a daughter with special needs and some learning disabilities. She's a super strong kid, and she's got a great life because I really bulldozed her there and made sure that we got all the things that we need for her. And so I'd love to help other families with that. And there are organizations out there that do help families with kids that have challenges to find out where they need to go and where they need to be. And I do believe that keeps people. That is one of the problems that we have with so many of the people that are living on the streets. Just were not properly diagnosed with learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD, and so many other things. Obviously, mental health is a whole other component, but just attacking this and helping families find the right place for their kids is super important to me. So I'd say those are my main three things right now, aside from obviously having a legacy of a beautiful, healthy family that goes to college and all that stuff. Just a few things.
Survives, thrives. Well, Kirsten, it was so good to talk to you today. I love that you're being mama bear with your little girl and that you're being mama bear for other people too. We just want to thank you because sharing your journey with us has been really inspiring, and your approach to wealth, leadership, legacy is exactly what women need to hear. So if you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave us a review, share it with your friends. We're building something, and we need you to keep leading boldly or rethinking wealth and what that really means if you're listening today. Every conversation strengthens the visibility and the power of women everywhere. And that's exactly what community, as we just lost our earbud, let's say that again. And that's exactly what this community is all about. So until next time, I'm Jodie O'Brien, and this was Influential Women. Keep showing up, keep building, and keep leading with integrity and vision.
Can we do it?